thank you, Scott, for sitting down with us in this beautiful setting.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Band of Outsiders as a business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're in this beautiful setting here in Europe, but the business started in Los Angeles, which is not necessarily, the first place that a lot of people choose to start their business. Why for you did that make sense?
Well, it's not for this type of clothing. A fashion business you don't really start in LA. It made sense because it's my home, and I love it. I'm not a New Yorker by birth, state of mind, or anything in between. So there really wasn't a question of where it was going to be. I think that inherently it's been it's an advantage and it's a disadvantage. From a logistical perspective, it's a nightmare. I mean, I make a lot of clothes in Italy. It's a 16-hour flight. It's a 9-hour time difference. I mean, it's pretty intense. But from a just creative perspective, well, also on the negatives, it's hard to find talent. It's a really lean team, mainly because I haven't been able to find in 8 years a menswear designer that can actually, that lives in LA or wants to be there and really is into this aesthetic and wants to be part of the team, But on the plus side, it's this wonderful environment in which to work outside of the fashion dialogue. So hopefully there's a freshness and sort of a singularity in what we're doing that's people appreciate.
Definitely. I mean, one of the things that often comes to mind when you think of the brand is its kind of unique American point of view. And it has a West Coast feel to it, which was very much evident in last night's show here.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about, how you define the brand, especially in a context like Europe. Is this a place we're trying to build a business? How big is the business here versus in America? What were the reasons for coming here?
Sure. Well, first of all, women's and men's you have to talk about totally differently when you're talking about global distribution. The phase we're at overall right now in the business is that it's sort of expanding, resonating, replicating what we have in the States and Asia, and really in every market in Europe. It's an incredibly important market for men's and women's. And it's a big challenge to sort of get the message across and to do it like we did it in the States, which was starting very small. Everybody saw I made shirts and ties and then suits and a sportswear collection. It was very clear the sort of where everything was coming from, and even the messages about the make of the clothes and why they're so expensive. It's a little easier to get across. But Europe is too important of a market to dismiss, and it's an open, exciting market for change right now. So in terms of our business now, women's is actually more weighted towards Europe. It's about 60-40, Europe, US, with Asia, maybe, Asia being a very 10% of that. So take 5 away from each of those. And men's is the reverse, about 60-40, US, Asia, with Europe sort of in there, a little less. But it's a big potential market. The way people, this idea of contemporary designer, it's a little bit different. I think that we've always, from the beginning with men's and with boy, we sit right between whatever these contemporary designer markets are. There's a designer make to the clothes and an attention to craft and detail and really nice fabrics and all of that stuff. And there's sort of we strive to innovate. It's in a smaller way. It's not avant-garde fashion. It's a different thing, but it plays nicely next to those brands, and it was designed from a product and a price point perspective to play with a designer brand pretty well. It also, we make great shirts that go well with jeans that work in a contemporary setting. In Europe, it's not so clear where the line is between those two. In these houses, that we were talking about before in Milan, I mean, this is a very old way of, sort of looking at luxury and luxury brands, and it's going to take a little time to sort of marry these two, this youthful aesthetic and this sort of humor and levity with a price point that I feel like has a lot of value, because I know how we make the clothes and I know how exclusive the distribution is.
One of the questions I really did want to ask you is why. It's probably a question you get asked a lot. Why are they so expensive?
Sure.
So here's your chance to answer in a business context.
And listen, I mean, it's really straightforward. We do not price. I don't screw with supply and demand. I'm pricing for a blended margin per category that allows me, at a very standard level for a business my size, to grow and to stay self-sufficient, which will have to change. We'll need outside capital. But we're getting industry standard margins on stuff and choosing instead, if we're going to have a shirt line, I mean, 70% of that shirt line has to be original fabrics that we design in-house, and that costs money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your margin is the fabric you're buying, your development costs. This is how you stay alive. This is how you offer that product, which is hopefully unique and well made and lasts. Overall, the decision was very clear. There's a classic bent to everything. These are American staples, American sportswear staples, classics that we're reinterpreting in subtle ways, proportion, color, in the context of a season, timing being so important for fashion. But that classic bent, if you're not applying a beautiful make to it, specifically a suit, you're just in the sea of middle, and there's really no point to that.
Is that message translating here for you in Europe?
It's starting to. This really helped, PT.
Yeah.
We're not a trade show brand. We're not going to do a booth, but we did a booth, and you look at all the hang tags on the blazer. It says this blazer costs about this. You're probably thinking right now that that's pretty expensive. Here's why.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's a huge challenge also because they'll pay that for an Armani suit that's industrial, made in an industrial way. The way our suits are made it's a value for it to be $1,800 or $2,300. There's suits out there for $3,500 and up that are the same exact construction.
Right.
And that's where we take a hit on our margins, is our more expensive stuff.
Right.
Things like leather jackets, beautiful trench coat. This is all made in Italy. Because again, we go there, there's some funny, goofy, fashiony pieces, but a lot of the heart of any menswear business are those basics that you're shipping sort of year-round to the stores. And I just can't really stand behind a product, this particular product that doesn't have this made in Italy or really well sort of managed made in U.S. production. In some cases, China's great for sweaters and stuff like that. It's indigenous to what they do. Kind of better at cashmere, it's a specific thing, or an intarsia technique or whatever. So the clothes are expensive because it's a pretty exclusive distribution. We put a lot of care and time into developing or buying really beautiful, expensive fabrics from the best mills in the world. And we make the clothes in really good factories, so they last.
You talk a little bit about the split between European manufacturing and very well supervised American manufacturing. I've heard about this guy in Brooklyn that does your suits.
Sure,
Can you talk to us a little bit about that guy and kind of how you discovered him and kind of why you think his standards are at this international level?
It's amazing what they do. I mean, the company is called Martin Greenfield Clothiers. It was originally called the 3Gs Factory, GGG, which I love. And it was started in like 1904 or something as 3Gs. No joke. Bushwick, which is now, of course, like...
super trendy.
It's insane. I started going there 7 years ago, and it was like Siberia. It was like a cab wouldn't go. Car services were impossible. But, Martin is a Holocaust survivor, bought the factory after being he started as like a janitor in it and worked his way up, learned how to become a tailor, and has owned it for 50 years, and his sons now run it. And the way they make a suit is, I'm sure there's a million Italian tailors who sort of do this, but they're a custom business. They make custom suits. That's what they do for a living. They were doing all the Brooks Brothers custom business for around the whole country for years and years. They've made suits for, you name the president, from Obama, going back. This guy's a legend. And so there's another guy in Brooklyn called Rocco, who Tom Brown started making some stuff with around exactly the same time. I just really responded to these people as humans, and what they do is, it's a non-industrial suit, down to the buttonholes being sewn by hand. The canvas is set. Every single process that a jacket goes through, you can either glue it together in an industrial way, or you can make it so this whole part of the jacket moves with you, so it's not this stiff thing. So it's not only that a size 0 fits you so well, Imran, it's that it's tailored in a way that it moves with you and it sort of lives with you. And so over time, it's not going to break. It's going to become better. It's actually going to become what you described before we started this, which is like the jacket you always wear. It's not, everybody always says, God, the fit's so great. It is, but you can't separate that from the tailoring or the fabric, because it's all, So that's Martin. And
how do you scale that though, right? Because as you have aspirations to grow this business, and as I'm assuming, maybe incorrectly, that there's a kind of cap to which this guy can grow his operation? Like, how will you?
It's a factory.
Okay.
Oh no, it's a factory. They were really smart. You know, the business, when Brooks Brothers dropped them a couple years ago, they had to really change their business and what they were doing. At the time, they were full on, you know, 2-shift factory. They were really union, the whole thing. Now it was interesting, they got a consultant to come in, and I was like, what are you guys doing? But he was really smart. It's sort of like my dad's a dentist in Dayton, Ohio, who was working 5 days a week. He's like 65 years old. This consultant was like, man, you can work 2 days a week and make more money.
Yeah.
It was sort of the same thing. So their capacity is actually amazing now. It's sort of almost better in terms of speed than it was, because they're able to they changed the way the worker schedule. They're on 1 shift and it works, they can do it. So that's scalable. What's not scalable is, well, what there's a cap to is how many hand-tailored suits can you sell, right? And can you really export those to Europe and have that be valid and relevant and get that message across? You know, we're still figuring out the suit thing in Europe. Do we offer 2 makes? Do we offer the American thing? Is there a novelty to it, or is it just US and Asia? Really, I'm not just on the hunt for an Italian tailor that can sort of do his own thing. What Martin does is what Martin does. What Rocco and Long Island City does is what they do. They're all different sort of approaches to this suit. Yeah.
You mentioned briefly earlier that at some point your business is going to need some outside capital to continue growing. Is that something you're actively seeking to do at this stage?
Yeah, it's so funny. The past couple of years, like, I've always gone through these periods because it's so stressful. There's money stuff on top of all this crazy fashion cycle collection things, shipping, all this stuff. It's cash flow is a serious issue, and the one thing about like buzz or whatever, from a personal ego perspective, I don't really care. But from a business perspective, you really want to, when you have a great show, you want to be able to sell those clothes, and you want to be able to have a infrastructure in place to get them into stores early, so the sell-through is great, and you can have inventory to support reorders and all that stuff. And then you really want to grow, which means you want to do accessories in a real way. Well, I can't be a one-man show doing 2 women's collections, men's collections, Sperry's. You have to really invest in talent. And if you want to open retail, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to take in capital. You can find a different type of partner to do that.
But then you end up giving away a lot of the margin on the retail anyway, right?
Yeah, potentially. It's just, it's all, to me, everything's long term. Everything is a means to an end, and everything is, the process itself is what needs to be sort of embraced and enjoyed, and sort of, the day-to-day should be sort of fun and enjoyable. Because if you're thinking like that, like weighing, like, do I take $5 million from some group of investors here, or do I do a retail JV with some guy who's an expert in sort of opening stores in some market somewhere? It's a balance, because you're giving. It's always a sacrifice. I mean, you're always giving something up. You got to figure out who you want to kind of give it to. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But on the long term, it's you want to open a lot of stores.
Yeah.
How are you going to get there? You want to make enough stuff so these stores are really compelling and there's new stuff all the time. How are you going to get there? You don't want to work every Saturday and Sunday. No. How are you going to get there?
But it seems like the future is certainly looking bright, and you've mentioned women's accessories and retail and lots of other stuff. So I wish you the best of luck with all of that.
Thank you
for chatting with the Business of Fashion.
You got it, man.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Cool.
Speak.
Thanks.